Jamoni Jones as a key component to Vandy's offense. Power.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like you want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today's episode, we're going to explore everything and all aspects of Vandy's rebuilt run game. How the quarterbacks and pass game mesh with the run game. What's the goal? What's the overall goal of the run game? But first, Vandy adds a key component to the run game with Jamoni Jones, and that is, wait for it, power. That's right. Jamoni Jones adds that key element of power to the run game. And just that's just a dimension that was like the last thing that they were looking for with I guess portal additions, high school recruiting, things like that. They were kind of just looking for that element, and I think they finally got it. I think when you look at what Jamoni Jones brings to the table, Jamoni Jones coming over from New Mexico. Stop me if you've heard this one, New Mexico State. So he's the latest addition from the transfer portal. Another guy that understands the system and understands his role within the system as well. So I really love this addition, not because I think he's going to be the starter and absolutely go crazy in this new revamped run game, but it's always great to have a 6'2", 225-pound running back that is a hammer down in the goal line. And not to mention he'll probably play at about 230, 235. And that's just, every good offense just needs that hammer back, I think, because especially if you're going to be a run heavy team, you need that element that late in games. Teams are going to get tired of hitting you. Teams are going to get tired of tackling. Teams are going to get tired of doing a whole bunch of other things. So having a big back in the rotation is clutch. Now, I don't know how they're going to distribute the carries. I don't know if there is room for carries for four guys. I imagine with the amount of that they're going to run, somebody's going to get banged up. So adding quality depth is always important. But you have McKalen Young, who's also got a little bit of size to him. Now you add Jamoni Jones, who's accounted for 10 touchdowns over the last 2 years. Hasn't really played a whole lot in the rotation. Has had some other roles, some blocking roles and things like that as well. But Star Thomas has been the man over there at New Mexico State. But just the overall presence of him in the backfield will bring guys closer to the line of scrimmage. It'll put teams in run blitz situations. Psychologically, it just wears on you, right? There was a back, there's backs that do this all the time, like Brandon Jacobs. Did he at Auburn years ago? He didn't add any sort of just overwhelming talent. He wasn't some big home run hitter. Now, he did play for the New York Giants for a lot of years. He was really good and really effective in the NFL. So he had some otherworldly talent, but he didn't really need it, right? He's like 6'3", 250 pounds. And he was fast. But he wasn't somebody that was going to take off and score a 75-yard touchdown, right? But he was somebody that by the time you got to the second half, you were already tired of tackling. You didn't want any part of that. And psychologically, it wore teams down. It provided opportunities for bigger run lanes, smaller boxes. It with people getting out, or it brought more people in because defensive coordinators were like, man, we got to crowd the box so that Brandon Jacobs doesn't just freaking hammer us all game long. So that really proved to be effective for Auburn as they were working through the season and working through some of these games. And this, just like I said, the psychological effect of that is, hey, we don't want to tackle this guy, and we're getting tired of it. And then anytime the other backs would come in, they would just feast because defenses would be so fatigued. And that's the benefit of having a guy like this. I'm not saying he's like a slow battering ram. He's not like a, Jerome Bettis type. Maybe he is, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, that's kind of the role he's going to have to kind of get used to at the start and just kind of work in from there, like as he gets opportunities. Also, goal line work, right? You go jumbo package. Well, what better way than to stick Jamoni Jones in the backfield and just let him battering ram himself through the line of scrimmage? Like, there's so many things you can do with a big back like that. You can lead him on jet sweep, block first thing on the edge. You can lead him on quarterback ISO. You can run some screens with him and get him the ball that way. You can pass protect. Like, if you want to go max protect, you put him in the game and he's going to take care of the A and B gaps and be just fine. So I think there's, when you have a lot of creativity, when you have a back of that size, you can do some more physical things. You can get in like 12 or 22 personnel and just throw bodies at the box, and leave some guys isolated out there on the edge. You can use him to get teams to crowd the box so that you create one-on-one opportunities on the outside, which I think if you can use those guys to open up things for guys like Quincy Skinner or Jeremiah Dillon or, guys like that, I think you have a chance to really have some success down the field. And then once you have success down the field, it then flips back around. So the run game is the foundation, okay? And how he fits into that, he gives you a power dynamic. He gives you, and I'll tell you kind of how he fits in throughout this whole thing. But like, what Vandy still wants to do, despite the recent addition of all these X Factor type weapons like Micah Bell, like Eli Stowers, Jeremiah Dillon, those guys, it goes beyond that, right? The run game is going to be used to provide opportunity with that. I still think with all those additions, I still think the run game is going to be the absolute core and identity of what they do. The receivers are going to have to fit in where they fit in within the run scheme and take advantage of opportunities that are presented with the run game. Okay. And so in doing so, you have to add quality depth at running back. And that they do. They got a great commit in Gabe Fields, who's going to add to the future of that position. But now you bring in Jamoni Jones. You got McKalen Young, who's in the pipeline. Cedric Alexander, AJ Newberry, also in the mix. And then you just got different pieces, different weapons, and you're able to do a lot of things. Now, what they're going to do schematically is that still. You can only kind of guess by watching tape of what New Mexico State has done. And you can only kind of guess or make an educated guess based on that as to what they're going to do. So like, don't take this as like, hey, this is gospel. I'm sitting in on these meetings because I'm not. But to me, what it looks like they're going to do is they're going to run a lot of inside zone. They're going to run a lot of jet sweep, a lot of, they're probably going to add in some outside zone a little bit, depending on what they see at guard. They may try some gap scheme stuff too, but I think you're going to see a team that specializes in more zone run schemes, like inside zone, duo, and wide zone too. So, you're going to see with dynamic backs like Cedric Alexander and AJ Newberry, you're going to kind of see some wide zone stuff to where they're reading the edge of the box there, or reading the tackle's block and making cuts up underneath that, versus straight downhill power, which you'll get a little component of power with power read, but I think you're going to have an offense that factors in the quarterback a lot. You're going to have an offense that bases a lot of RPO stuff. So things have to be kind of relatively simple with that. And I don't anticipate them pulling a whole lot of people. But I think with what they have, the depth or lack thereof of depth on the offensive line, which I think you've got some quality guys, you just don't have enough of them. I think you're going to have some simplicity there with the run game, and I think that's going to be the overall goal. So, like I said, it's the foundation of what Tim Beck wants to do. It's going to be what props up this offense, and I will talk more about that next. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers. That's right. All customers with a booster, a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So make sure you head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to start making the most out of your summer. Again, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports and you're getting tired of all this screaming, especially screaming about Caitlin Clark? Well, look no further. You should make the switch right on over to Locked On Sports Today. That's right. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. It's all Vandy all day, every day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So we thank you for viewing that. Make sure you make Locked On SEC your second watch and or listen. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job over there. And as always, if you want to be the most educated fan base in the entire league, make sure you check out the other shows as well and see what's going on at, say, Locked On Ole Miss or Locked On Auburn or Locked On Georgia or Locked On Tennessee. Just make sure you head on over to those places and just kind of peruse. You don't have to, just see what's going on. But anyway, I'll tell you what's going on over here is that Vandy's run game is being rebuilt. Tim Beck is under the hood with wrenches and ratchets and, rebuilding all the key components to the run game. And he's added some horsepower. Okay. And by horsepower, I mean, he's added a big running back, Jamoni Jones, that's going to be the hammer to this offense. And he's somebody that's going to be a threat on the goal line. He's going to be great in pass protection. He's going to help get Micah Bell or Quincy Skinner or whoever's running the jet sweep. He's going to help get them to the edge because a good jet sweep is going to mean good jet read for the quarterback. So we'll talk more about that. But I think in a dream scenario, you have a situation to where Vandy is in 12 personnel and they are absolutely crushing it. Okay. But I'm really excited about this foundation, not only with Jamoni Jones bringing a power element to Vandy's run game. I think that's only going to help. But I think Cedric Alexander is going to, he's going to be set to benefit. He led rushing as a freshman, 371 yards on 96 carries. He also caught 18 passes out of the backfield. So it's he's gonna see his role expand tremendously, and with not only with the opportunity of like being one of the few incumbent players that didn't transfer, he's also lucking into a philosophy that's going to see an uptick in carries and uptick in usage of the running back. So again, it's he's going to see a role increase with Patrick Smith leaving. AJ Newberry is going to have his role increase too. I think that's going to be a great 1-2 punch. However that shakes out, if Newberry starts and Cedric Alexander comes in relief or vice versa, I think you're going to see a really good 1-2 punch there. And you're going to see two very dynamic type of running backs. And what I really like about this and why I think this will be very beneficial is, honestly, it's a rebuilt offensive line, okay, with led by Chris Klinakis, and transfers of Chase Mitchell, Stephen LeSoy, Stephen Hubbard, and Cade McConnell joining some of the other guys. But I think now, just because I think they've defined this as their identity first and foremost, right? So they're going to buy into it. They've been preparing. Everything's coming off the run game, right? I just think that with the dynamic schemes that they're gonna do, and I think that being quarterback involved a little bit, having guys that can run, and having running backs that can do a lot of different things, and a coordinator that kind of really knows what to do with all of that type of stuff, is going to be beneficial. Because, like, I think there was a handful of reasons why Vandy's offense was terrible last year, and a lot of it was just because it seemed like Joey Lynch, and no offense to Joey Lynch, he was just in over his head, but he had some quarterbacks that he really honestly didn't know what to do with, right? He had some quarterbacks that were great quarterbacks. They were good. I mean, they've transferred on to other places. Ken Seals Jr. went to TCU. They're not going to just take him just because, he's got some talent, but they just honestly didn't know what to do with them. And they were constantly going against loaded boxes. And Joey Lynch really just kind of fell apart with that and didn't really know how to attack. And they couldn't attack, and they couldn't, defenses were like, okay, well, you're going to have to beat us vertically down the field, and they just couldn't do it. And they couldn't run to make them pay, and I think they wanted to. And it just seemed like this offense was just kind of wandering aimlessly through the season. And not to talk too much about last year, but like, they have an identity now, and they have a way of like setting things up, and using the run game to set up the pass game, using this is a foundational piece, having multiple schemes that attack different parts of the box, making sure that these linebackers aren't comfortable, making sure that if there is going to be any sort of blitz, there's going to be some RPOs that we'll kind of talk about, and play actions and things like that. You do have a running quarterback that you have to account for. You do have double options that you're going to have to account for, like Jet Reed, where you got a fast guy getting on the edge right now, and a quarterback with a pulling guard wrapping up into the hole. Like you've got things like that you have to account for. And when you have to account for that stuff, linebackers can't play as fast. If you have things hitting on the perimeter, you can't really throw 9 at the box and say, come get us. And if you put your corners on an island, they're going to pay. And yeah, the defense will get you sometimes, okay, because that's football. They have scholarship players too, and they watch film too, and they prepare. But I just think that the pace will be better. I think the buy-in will be a lot better. I think you're going to get more favorable matchups for your offensive line, and that's the foundation of it. I think in a perfect world, Tim Beck wants to be in 12 personnel, which will feature Eli Stowers, and it'll also feature one of your bigger tight ends like Emmanuel Abdi from Cornell, who's brought in as a blocking back. It'll, Cameron Johnson will have a role as kind of a hand down type tight end. Cole Spence, the big 6'7" behemoth who's injured in 2023. Like I think you'll see some opportunity for some 12 personnel type stuff where Eli Stowers might go in as a jumbo slot in some formations where you have Cole Spence or Cameron Johnson with their hand down, or you might see a couple, they might get creative with some of these 12 personnel formations. They might give you a spread look out of 12 personnel. You never know. I mean, there's a bunch of different things they can do, but again, their prowess in blocking for the run game will be paramount. And this, this just identity, just this us knowing what they want to do and how they want to do it is already a win because they have an identity. That's the first step. That's something Vandy did not have last year. I did not know from play to play what Vandy wanted to do, from game to game, what the offense was trying to do. It just seemed like he had a list of plays and said, okay, let's get through these list of plays. It didn't seem like they had any sort of rhyme or reason to what they wanted to do, how they wanted to set people up, what quarterback they even wanted to use, or if they even knew what these quarterbacks were good at. I don't know what was going on at Vanderbilt last year. And I don't mean to be mean about that, but it just didn't appear as they really got to knew what they were doing. And some of that's on Clark Lee and some of that's on, Joey Lynch and, presumably the team probably packed it in there towards the end of the season too, given the fact that a lot of people transferred. So that's not, that's plausible as well. But I love that there's an identity, and I love that there's a component that quarterbacks can contribute and contribute significantly, but we'll talk about that next. Right. Passion, drive, patience is the formula for winning championships. Is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right. We're back. Welcome. Segment number 3. We're wrapping up the show here. The Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Man, thank you guys so much for making us part of your daily listening. If you like what you hear, follow us at Locked On Vandy on X and Instagram. Again, thank you to the everydayers. I don't know if I can thank you guys enough. I really don't. But if I could thank you guys enough, I would. And if I can't thank you enough, I'm certainly going to try. But thank you for making all this possible. But also, it helps that Vandy football is also trying to make this an enjoyable situation and trying to give me things to talk about. But so how do the quarterbacks fit into this whole thing, right? Because when you hear the run game is the foundation of an offense, you're thinking, well, the quarterback's just going to hand it off and we're just, that's the immediate thought, right? Because for years, that's what it was. Like the quarterback would take it from the center, turn around, go hand it off, and you run power, and then you do it again, and you run ISO, and you run counter, and then, maybe a boot, maybe a drop back, something every once in a while. But when you heard that, like, hey, we're going to run the ball a lot, this can be a foundation of our offense, it was that. It was 1980 Georgia, where I think Buck Bellew probably threw 5 passes a game. So that's not the case here, because if you look at the quarterback roster, they're all athletic guys. They all are guys that can run, that like to run. Some that are primary runners like Nate Johnson. You might see some funkiness in how the reps are distributed too, because your number 2 quarterback better be ready in this offense, because quarterbacks are going to run. and they're going to take some hits, and that's going to be what it is. So when you look at how the quarterbacks fit in, first of all, with any dynamic run game is the threat of a double option or a quarterback +1 run scheme, which means like quarterback sweep, quarterback lead sweep, quarterback ice, things like that, right? Quarterback counter. But when you factor that in, that's dangerous in itself, because now the defense has to account for the quarterback running the game. Now, not only do they have to account for Cedric Alexander or Jamoni Jones in the red zone or whatever the case may be, now you get big Jamoni Jones back there, and they're worried about, oh crap, here comes big number. I don't know if he's going to wear number 3, but here he comes. Here comes Jones again. He's going to smash into me. Well, he is, but now Pavia or even there's some formations where you get Jones and Nate Johnson in the backfield together, and Jones blocks for Nate Johnson, and boom, here he goes, quarterback ice. And next thing you know, Jamoni Jones crushes the linebacker. Nate Johnson is in the secondary, relatively untouched. Now you're looking at trouble, right? So you get the +1 running game from the quarterbacks. I think that's an incredible feature there. You also, with the quarterback run game, you get double option too. So you get zone read, where quarterback runs out the backside. If you get an overzealous defensive end or an overzealous backside linebacker, you get like a power read. They call it power read or jet read. Power read is with the back, and jet read is with the receiver coming across in jet motion. Same thing for the offensive line, but different backfield action, which if you can successfully run jet sweep, that play will work every single time. You get that. You get, if they want to dabble in some gap schemes, which I'm not sure if they will, but then you get then you get true power, then you get true counter, then you get counter bash, which is also involves the quarterback and some sort of double option. And then you have elements of, you have RPO elements where you get RPOs. First level RPOs are really just kind of triple option plays, where you get like the tight end running across the formation behind the line of scrimmage, and catching the ball on the flat on the other side. You get quarterback draws that are influenced by running back on a flare screen, which you can actually throw the flare screen out there if you wanted to. You got slant RPOs from the backside. You get stick RPOs. You get all kind of things in the RPO game that take advantage of overzealous linebackers and force them to cover, play slow, and cover width as well. So you've got a lot of components there that mess with the linebackers at the second level. So that's another dangerous element that's going to freeze the linebackers, create lighter boxes, and present matchup problems, especially if you're splitting out a tight end as like a jumbo slot. That really messes with defensive keys there. Then you have play action, which I think is going to be a lot of your deep shots. So they're gonna play action right across. Maybe you run jet read and run the back up the seam, where like it's a Cedric Alexander, and you just dump it over to him, and next thing you know, you got a big chunk yardage or 6, right? You get bootlegs, you get play action sprint outs, you get you get things in the quick game that are based on off run. Again, that's probably more RPO based, but like play action stuff is where you can kind of hit your downfield things, because it gives you aggressive pass protection up front, where the linemen are firing off and then staying at the line of scrimmage. They're not just popping up and just letting everything engulf them, which I think was another problem with Vandy. They didn't really know what they wanted to do protection wise. So again, these loaded boxes would also overwhelm the quarterbacks. But you've got a lot of things that build off of a successful run game. You've got built-in pass schemes. So if you want to go play action, you could go, like, let's say you're a counter team and you want to run counter play action. Well, you could run counter play action and set up behind it. You could run naked bootlegs. You could run stretches. You can run a lot of different schemes that's going to put receivers in double moves. It's going to put receivers coming across the formation, coming across the field. You get short play action, token play action fakes with deep shots. Like, you get a lot of different things that are involved. But the foundation of it all is the run game. If you have a strong run game, you can protect, you can run play actions, you can run RPOs, which 90% of your offense can go through. And then you get Jamoni Jones, who has a key element of power. You get that component that forces teams, that wears teams down psychologically and physically. So the run game is going to be important. It's going to be a key piece to Vandy's overall efforts on offense. And the pieces within it are very, very important as well. So we hope you get your week started off right. We'll see you back here tomorrow. That's all I got for you now. Thank you for all the everydayers again for making all this possible. We love you. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday. Get your week off to a great start. And we'll see you back here tomorrow. Anchor down.